Hello everybody, Suzanne Kellner-Zinck from Dawning Visions Hypnosis here to speak about anorexic and bulimic males, as in boys and men. This is a problem that even the mental health professionals in the United States feel does not exist, to the point where there is nothing written in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual to speak to this problem. When you look up anorexia or bulimia, they're speaking of females, always females. So this becomes a real problem when you have a person who has figured out the fact that perhaps they're anorexic or bulimic as a male, and they go looking for help, and there's no help. It's all geared toward the woman. So how do they get the help? Well, I guess for some of them, they find private practitioners who might be willing to take them on and work with them. But the problem is this: eating disorders are complicated. The reasons why they develop and how you have to deal with them. Because it's not just the emotional, mental, dysphoric ideas of what's going on in their brains when they're doing these behaviors. The body dysmorphia, where they feel that they're a lot fatter. They see themselves as fatter, actually, than they actually are when they look in the mirror. And all the rest of the emotional stuff. We're also dealing with people who are greatly malnourished because they're not eating the foods that they need to eat in order to nourish their bodies. And when that happens, their bodies can start breaking down, especially for the anorexics, when they restrict their food more and more and eat less and less of it and spend a lot more time playing with it than anything else. The bulimics will eat a whole ton of food after starving themselves all day, many thousands of calories, and they'll go purge it out because they don't want to get fat. And this causes its own problems in terms of the physiology of the body, because you have a lot of stomach acids that are coming up with the purging of the food, which is irritating to the entire gastrointestinal system from the stomach up through the mouth. And they end up having a lot of cavities and a lot of damage thanks to all the acids into their bodies. In fact, the bulimic women who have come in to see me, this is the number one reason. They do not want to have irreversible problems based on their purging behavior. So how do we help these people? Well, the first thing that we need to understand is that there's always a cause for a problem to develop. They don't come out of nowhere. The person is trying to protect themselves, in this case, control. At some point in their life, they felt totally out of control. Generally, kids don't have much control over their lives. Adults always tell them what they can and cannot do, and with whom. And in the more abusive situations, the kids figure out that this is the way that they can take some control. They control how much food, what kind of food, when they eat, how they eat. And that's how it is. It's the one thing they can control. Then we have to understand the purpose as to why that problem is still there, especially if they're no longer in the situation, the environment where they needed to come into some form of control over their lives, in which the eating disorders became that control mechanism for them. And the purpose really has to do with what the person is getting out of having the disorder. Now, more often than not, it's not a conscious thing. It's an unconscious thing. And that's why hypnotism is really wonderful as a way to get to those understandings, because a lot of it's unconscious. And most of these people, in their conscious mind, they want to let it go. That's why they are looking for help. Their unconscious mind is fighting it. And that's a problem. Milton Erickson is a psychiatrist and a hypnotist. He taught a lot of hypnotists how to do hypnotism over the years. Would say that the only reason we have clients come to us is because their conscious and unconscious is fighting one another. Our job is to bring them together, and I do that by bringing people into their higher conscious to make that happen. Works a lot quicker that way. But in any case, what we need to understand is that there's a cause for the problem, there's a purpose as to why they're holding on to it, and then we need to understand that there needs to be a compelling future that's more important than just for themselves or their family. something of interest that they want to do to make the world better for their having been there. And depending on what age they are, what their interest, education is, that will determine it. Because of course we need this to be age appropriate. Understanding that some of the eating disorders, even in males, is starting as early as 8 years old now. It used to be around teenage years. So something is really screwed up in our societies when this is happening, when kids are not able to be kids and just enjoy their childhoods any longer. A lot of really important questions we need to ask ourselves as the adults. After we figure out the cause, the purpose, and their compelling future, we need to deal with this addiction. It is an addiction, people. It is an addiction because they have compulsive thoughts that lead to impulsive behaviors of self-harm. And they do it even though they're harming themselves. Their lives get into smaller and smaller aspects because they're not willing to go out and eat at restaurants, which is what a lot of people, the younger people, do to get together. They'll go out and get some food at some restaurant, or maybe they'll have a picnic by the beach, or maybe they'll go to the movies and get popcorn and candy. Or they might even make something at home, who knows. But if you're not willing to eat, you can no longer do those activities with your friends. So they end up isolating. And then their mind continues to play these loops of these behaviors that happen as a result of these compulsive thoughts they have, that they're not good enough, they're not thin enough, they're not strong enough, they're not whatever enough. And what it really comes down to is they're not enough. So there's an addiction process that I use with my clients to help them to overcome the addiction of the eating disorder. And then there's boundaries, because these folks don't have any boundaries. They will say and do things to be perfect because in the family of origin, they realized they had to be perfect or problems would happen and they'd be blamed for them at very young ages. I know some people don't believe this to be true, but it's been true with, 100% of my clients so far with eating disorders. It's their story, it's their life. They must know what their life was. I'm not here to judge them, I'm just here to listen to them, help them heal it. In some cases, the trauma might be where they were taken away from what they knew before, like if they had a mom felt unsafe in the house, or the father took the son away to another place, far away from his friends, his family members. And in this case, I'm speaking of the father figure. This is a problem. Boys need their father figures. They need them a lot. It's their role model, and hopefully they have good role models. But when they don't have good role models, weird things can happen. Especially if you have a father who's really demanding, gets upset with you often, and you don't understand why. So, and these are some of the issues that arise, and this is what we can do to help them out. And I'm more than willing to work with anybody who has eating disorders, so long as their weight is normal. I am not willing to take on anyone who is malnourished to the point where they need to be under medical care because their body weight is too light for them to be able to function normally, at least in terms of their metabolism and their ability to eat normal amounts of food and be healthy, at least to that degree. My specialization is about helping people with their minds, their subconscious, unconscious mind, and to get rid of those internal representations that are held there in the subconscious, unconscious mind that are creating all this dysfunctional self-harming behavior, and transforming that into internal representations that will bring about really positive behavior so that people can actually have compelling futures. Futures that are unbelievably contented, fulfilled, and happy, because contented, fulfilled people are happy by their very nature. It is a long program. It needs to be. We need to make sure the person is done with a problem. So it's 6 months to a year, depending on the person. And the price doesn't vary. I just have a program fee that people pay. And that's the way it works. Because it's about time men were able to get the help they need with their eating disorders, instead of having them die 40 years later because they couldn't get any treatment. It's absolutely ridiculous and reprehensible, in my estimation. All the work is done online from the comfort of your own home. And I schedule things that work for you. Because I'm here to serve you. I'm not here for you to serve me. Not really. You're the one who's paying me to serve you. So we do the best we can to deal with these urgent problems as quickly and as effectively as possible. Because anyone who's gone through this hell understands that this isn't a life to be lived. It gets really, really bad. And we don't want it to have to get that far before we do treatment, because it does progress. It's a progressive illness, both anorexia and bulimia. Not to mention the fact that anxiety and depression come with them. So those are two other aspects that we need to deal with for sure. So I wanted to just give you this information so you know there's a place to go online to get the help with someone who actually has been very successful in helping people heal from these disorders. Oh, I don't know, starting from 2005, long, long time. And my clients are still doing pretty well from what I understand from the ones I'm still in contact with. And I am still in contact with some of them because they ask me to help them with other things in their lives. And that's a really beautiful thing. Because all I want to see is, especially the younger people, move on to have productive, happy, functional lives. They deserve that. And if they deserve that, anyone who's watching this deserves that as well. As always, I thank you for spending your time with me. Till next time. Contact information will be in the description. Bye-bye all.